On your mark. Set.
Welcome to the Home Straight Podcast, the podcast for Paralympians by Paralympians. I'm Chad Paris.
I'm Scott Reardon.
And I'm Evan O'Hanlon. You're listening to episode 2. Remember to join in and follow the conversation with the hashtag #TheHomeStraight.
So first up, quick apology to everybody. We haven't been able to get this out bang on Monday. Just a few technical difficulties, and we came in a little bit late from Townsville as well, having a few races on the weekend, as we mentioned last week. But all ready to go now and get into a bit of Paralympic sport action.
So the trek off to Townsville for the first race in quite a while for all of us. A little bit longer for Evan than Chad and I. But Chaddy, how'd it go for you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Just a few training races. I think we're all in the same boat there. But 11.27 and 11.15 were my two. Some strong headwinds about. It was a nice and warm up there in Townsville, but good to get those training races out and obviously peaking to run fast in September. So not really too worried about times now, but getting the race right. Evan?
Yeah, nice to hand it off to me after telling them what you ran, because I ran a little bit slower than you, Chatty. I ended up getting beaten for the first time by an Australian Paralympic athlete since I think about 2006. And I think we can safely call Townsville the place where giants go to die, because Heath Francis, my old training partner, shout out to Heathy if he ever listens to our podcast. We get 2 listeners this week, he might listen. But that's where I first got beat. That's where I first beat Heath back in 2008, before the Beijing 2008 Paralympic Games. And it's where I just got beaten on the weekend by my training partner, Chad Paris. So disappointing for me, but exciting times for Chaddy. And nothing I can say other than he was just better than me on the day.
Well, going from the track record of you taking down Heath back in 2008, Ev, we end up with 3 gold medals, 2 world records, and picked up a bronze in the relay as well. So it's not really looking too bad for you if you can kind of carry that on.
Yeah, look, I think Scotty, Ev's just had 7 months off after having missed a world champs due to injury, and look, I'll take that one win with a grain of salt, because we got a couple more races up in the next few weeks, so it'll be interesting to see how they go.
Chad's just trying to be nice to me now, so I don't make sure I don't whoop his ass too hard in training this week.
Won't be through lack of trying, that's for sure.
And Scotty, obviously you raced as well. You asked the question earlier, but you raced as well. How did you go?
It was, as Chaddy mentioned, it was definitely a training race. Generally, I start the seasons with 25.5 and 12.5. And looking at the results, that's exactly what came up. So I think it's just a bit of an indication that training is on track. Changed a few things over the last 12 months and getting on top of it now. And hopefully as we progress forward and execute a few things, we'll start going a bit faster.
Just to clarify for the listeners, that's 25.5 for a 200. He's gone double what Evan and I both had a crack at. So he has a 200 at the Paralympics, Evan and I don't. So he's gone at the half lap, and not too bad at the time, that one, Scotty.
Not too disappointed with that first run.
Well, boys, while this is our own podcast and we can indulge a little bit by talking about our own results, it's only fair that we move on now into the kind of weekly wrap-up segment that we've been doing for all of our podcasts. I mean, the last one that we did being our first podcast, so this will be the second one, and we're starting a bit of a trend. We're going to move on to the weekly wrap-up. So there's a little bit happening around the world. First up was Roland Garros over there on the clay courts in France. We obviously saw on TV all the news about the able-bodied athletes, but the disabled athletes, the wheelchair tennis was on as well. And in the men's singles, the winner was Gustav Fernandez. In the women's singles, the winner was Marlene Boyes. And I'm just going to have to apologize straight up there, because I'm pretty sure I pronounced that wrong. They also had a doubles tournament for the men's and women's, and they're mixed countries, so the winner of the men's doubles was the team made up of Kaneda from Japan and Reed of Great Britain. While in the women's doubles, the winning team was made up of Kamiji from Japan and Wiley from GB again.
Before we move on, boys, tennis on clay. I couldn't imagine that'd be the easiest thing to do. What do you reckon?
Especially wheelchair tennis on clay. Like, it's insane.
Well, being from track, we already know that they don't like the softer tracks. So I can only imagine that the clay would be like pushing on a soft track for the racing guys that we know. So if there's any wheelchair tennis player out there that's listening, or someone that is listening knows a wheelchair tennis player that they can get to listen, We'd like them to join the conversation with the hashtag, the home straight. Let us know what it's like playing on clay court.
Look, they do a better job than I would, that's for sure. I can already give them that one. So, full credit to them. They did really good. Really good effort over there in France.
Yeah, we'll move on to some more news. So we're going to World Cup for Judo, which was held in England last week. And judo is actually for vision impaired athletes only. So it only has completely blind athletes competing. Actually, I think it's completely blind. We'll have to actually double check that, and we might run it in a different segment in classification in the next couple of weeks. And obviously, like most fighting and combat sports, they're graded by weights. So there was a total of 13 events over the competition, and the medal tally stood in gold medals at the end. Brazil took out 3 gold medals, Russia, Germany and France all took out 2 gold medals, with Korea, Great Britain, Belarus and Romania all picking up 1 gold medal. So quite a successful competition there for the Brazilians, and that'll hold them in good stead as we move towards the Rio Paralympic Games. Boys, that's probably about the wrap up for the sport. There wasn't a lot of stuff going on this week, but there's big news in Australian sport this week with the uniforms being released. What do you think?
It's exciting, Scotty. I think bright is the one word that comes to mind, especially with the opening ceremony kit. They've gone for a bright summery feel with Rio. There is a light sky blue jacket for those who haven't seen it, and the pants. There's 3 different colour pants. They've got a green, an ochre, which is like an orange, and a yellow. So some very bright colours there, all representing different colours that you will find in Australia. So they look quite nice, I think, and we'll, what was your thoughts on the competition kit, Ev?
Well, first up, I need to say that I thought Jaden Sawyer, our friend, who went down and modelled the kit for us for the opening, for the launch of the kit, I thought he looked magnificent in his get-up. What colour pants was he wearing?
I think he was rocking the green pants, so it looked very, very swish.
I would have liked to see him in the pinky orange pants, to be honest.
It's a bit of a change from Jaden's normal black that he likes wearing, but I'm sure that he'll like that as we move forward and add a bit of colour to his repertoire.
Absolutely.
What I can say about the uniform is that we had a very, very nice uniform in London, and it was made by 2XU, our competition and get-around uniform, and our ceremony kit was made by RM Williams, another famous Australian brand. And if you don't know it, you should look it up, because they're a nice brand and they're very famous in Australia. But again, those two outfitters will be outfitting us for Rio. So get online, have a look at those photos, because the kit, it's colourful, but I think it's gonna, if it can compare in quality to the London kit, we're gonna have a great kit.
Yeah, I think the traditional strip of the green and gold for the competition, it's always a good look for Australia. And this time we actually introduced a little bit more yellow back into it, where it was predominantly green. So we looked a little bit South African at the London Games. So
don't want to look South African.
You don't want to look South African. You don't want to look like Brazil either. So it was a good move to go back to a little bit more yellow, and a couple of little Indigenous strips on the Australian uniform this time around as well, to pay respect to the Indigenous elders past and present in Australia.
Yeah, and they actually had some Indigenous artists get involved, I think, with the design. So yeah, it's really nice little touch, I think.
Yep, they're on all competition uniforms as well, so looks very nice, and can't wait to hopefully be rocking one of them down the home straight in Rio.
Just down the home straight, or I hope the back of it looks nice so that everyone can see us, that we look good when everyone's behind us.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So that pretty much wraps up what's happened in the last week in Paralympic sport. As you can imagine, we are still training full time, so we do miss a few things. So do get involved and get amongst the hashtag the home straight. If you've seen any uniforms come through, obviously we had the Netherlands and Austria the last week. We spoke a little bit about them. If there's anything that we have missed, whether it's something as far as news, if you've seen an athlete have an incredible performance, or even a sport or an event that we've missed out, we do hope that you can get in contact with us so we can actually get them into the podcast, because it is a bit hard to keep on top of everything. So we'll move on to the next segment, and I'll bring in Chatty Perris for this. He's been doing a little bit of research on the sport of wheelchair rugby. Tell us a little bit about that, Chatty.
Yeah, sweet. So wheelchair rugby, aka murder ball. It's very similar to rugby and basketball, sort of a bit more of a combination of both. Now, 4 players on each team. They're all in purpose-built wheelchairs. Mainly to carry the ball. The main aim of the game is to carry the ball across the opposition's goal line. So you can't catch the ball whilst in the other team's goal. You have to have the ball and cross the line to be able to score. So basically, contact between wheelchairs is permitted, and that's basically one of the main purpose of the game, and that's some of the attraction for you to be going and watching it in Rio, and that's certainly what I'll be doing once I'm finished competing, going and watching a bit of murder ball or wheelchair rugby. It's going to be quite interesting. Now, basically, a couple of rules. Players must dribble the ball or pass the ball at least once every 10 seconds. There's no offside rules, so matches consist of 4 8-minute quarters. But the clock is stopped pretty much whenever there is a stoppage in the game. So it does take about an hour and 15 minutes to finish the game. So it takes a while, but it's similar in the way to basketball in that they have a 12-second shot clock to get over the halfway line, and there's 40-second shot clock to be able to score. And then it's a turnover basically for the other team if they exceed that 40 seconds. So it's played indoors on a regular-sized basketball court, so a nice condensed area. So it's not too big, and a lot of action goes on. Basically, a couple of facts about medals in the past. We've had the USA have been the more dominant teams at past Paralympics, having won 2 gold medals, and Australia have won 1. Canada is the other one who are close behind them. So there'll be the 3 main countries to watch. Wheelchair rugby itself originated in Winnipeg in Canada. That was back in 1976. So there was 5 wheelchair athletes looking for an alternative to wheelchair basketball, and geez, they found it. It's a pretty intense sport. Watched a few highlights of it from London in the past week, and it's going to be a pretty awesome spectacle, that's for sure. It was first presented at the Atlanta 1996 Paralympics back then, and it made its Paralympic debut in Sydney 2000. So I think the one thing that we'll be looking forward to is a vast range of athletes competing in it as well. Basically, the way classification works is there's classifications basically ranging from different sport classes. Now they're ranked in points, so 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, 2.5, 3.0, and 3.5. They're all there, all the different classification areas, and basically for athletes mainly with quadriplegia, and there's different ways that they can pass the ball around. So the point system, it goes basically from 0.5 is players have a significant limited function in their shoulders, arms or hands. So, for example, due to tetraplegia, the player would typically catch the ball by tapping it into their lap, throwing the ball with a scoop pass, and their main objective in the game is being used as a blocker. So they're the ones that are going to be knocking the other people around, while some say the more able athletes might be handling the ball, because that's their strength is going to be blocking in the game. So that range right up to 3.5, which is 3.5 players good arm and hand function, which makes his or her major ball handler in the team. Like I said before, you've got the blockers in the 0.5 category, might be blocking for the 3.5. So across these different classes, basically there's eight points, and you're not allowed to go over those points with the 4 players on the court. So you might have to have a 3.5 in the team, and then the others will have to be lower classifications to be able to make it up to the 8 points. So you'll only have 4.5 points to be able to make up with the extra 3 players on the court. I think that just about covers the wheelchair rugby for the moment, boys. Any other questions at all? Or?
You've done a pretty good job there, Chatty. Me and Scotty couldn't get a word in edgewise, so I don't think there was any need to correct anything there either, and I'm not sure if I had any questions. I was trying to think of a question, so I sounded smart.
Well, actually, on that there, as a part of the weekly wrap-up, we should have actually mentioned that Canada, who are currently ranked number 1 in the world, just released their team for the Paralympic Games. So they're obviously going to want to step up from the performance of silver medal at the London Paralympic Games and take away that gold. And obviously being ranked number 1 in the world, the expectation for those guys would definitely be to do that.
Pressure's on.
So did Canada just release their murder ball team, or did they release their names of their whole team?
They named the team, sorry. Yes, so
yeah.
they named their team that will be going to Rio.
Yeah, well, that was my attempt there at making a smart question, so that I looked intelligent. And But by the way, we have been just then listening to Chatty, learning about murderball, and that was I felt like I blacked out for a second there listening to Chatty. But Lynn Anderson, the head of the Australian Paralympic Committee, she was listening to the podcast, which I was pretty impressed with. She tweeted us back and to let us know, and that she was continuing her Paralympic education. So we're doing a good job here, boys. We're educating the masses, but we're also educating those that are already in the business.
That can only be a good thing.
Absolutely, Scotty. I think the more education anybody has on Paralympic sport, the better. And we've had a question come through on hashtag the home straight from one Ben Harradine, able-bodied discus thrower for Australia, who'll be going to the Olympics later this year. His question to the three of us was, what would you tell your 14-year-old self? I'll chuck that one out to Scotty first up, mate. 14-year-old you, what would you say?
I don't know what I'd tell 14-year-old me, but I know what I'd tell 12-year-old me. Tie your shoelaces up. As probably most people will be aware, I lost my leg when I was 12, so probably could have been avoided, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, if I tie my shoelaces up, am I Paralympian? Am I sitting here? Don't know. That's probably the advice I'd give myself, but what about you, Ev?
I can't even remember what I was doing yesterday, let alone 14 years ago. I like to blame that on my brain damage, but
He says that as a joke, but it's actually true. Half the time, our coach comes and tells us what we're doing the next day, and without a doubt, Evan will send a message in the morning asking what's going on.
But I'll normally send a message to one of the boys so that she doesn't find out that I was asking. And I also thought about it earlier in the segment when Scotty asked Chad about his recent results over the weekend. I know I lost to Chad, but I was impressed with the way that Chad also rattled off the headwinds and the times that he ran, because I was just sitting there thinking, now I'm under pressure. I'm really under pressure now. I've got to make sure that I say something intelligent.
So 14-year-old self, Ev, what's it going to be?
14-year-old self would be probably don't worry that everyone's beating you at the track at high school, because you're running against able-bodied athletes, and stick in there, just do the training, and you'll eventually get to compete on a level playing field like the Paralympics.
Yeah, look, well, I'll be the next one, obviously. I'll just quickly chip in on that, Ev. I know at high school I was in no state of beating anybody that in my year, and I know that now I'd be kicking all of them off the park. So it's always something to keep in mind. To my 14-year-old self, I'd tell him to start athletics. I started athletics when I was 20 years old, started sprinting, and if I'd have started 6 years earlier, I reckon I'd be a lot faster and a lot better off for it now, technique-wise, and I wouldn't have to be doing all of the sort of technical stuff, learning how to start properly. Now there'd be a lot more other focuses that I would have been or had drummed into me. So that'd be mine. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks, Chatty. Definitely have to say a big thanks for our first question that came in through Ben Harradine. So remember, hashtag at the home straight, keep them coming in, and we'll do our best to answer them on a weekly basis. So we probably should move on.
Ben also has his own hashtag.
Oh yeah, at hashtag will it throw. Actually, it's probably worth getting on there for anybody who is interested in a bit of a comedian. Ben runs a segment on his Facebook and all forms of social media where people write into him and he throws various things.
You got to write in with a suggestion of something that he can throw, like you would throw a discus, to see how far it would go. So it's ranged from a sock full of hummus to, I think, a frozen chicken or a frozen pie at one stage, and also Scott Reardon's leg.
You got a meat pie with tomato sauce on it, I don't know that.
Yeah, that's about as Australian as you can possibly get, isn't it?
Be nice and sticky in the hand.
He did throw an iPhone.
Yeah, iPhone through his nephew as well. So there's been a few things over the years that he's had a good throw at. And
My personal favourite was the air guitar. I think he threw it 97 metres. Strong thrower of the air guitar.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good segue, boys. From one athlete to another, we'll take it into Athlete of the Week. For me this week, watching a bit of Roland Garros as far as the able-body competitions going along, I was able to follow some of the Paralympic stuff as well. And for me, Gustavo Fernandez takes out my Athlete of the Week. So the 22-year-old who'd been in two finals in the past, in 2014, he lost the Australian Open and the US Open, and he was able to take out the the championship in Roland Garros. He was able to actually beat the world number one on his way to victory. So this is a guy that's been in the system for a number of years. So for him to come through and finally take out his first Grand Slam title, I think it's a pretty good achievement.
I think we're trying to find people who can tell us about playing tennis on clay in the wheelchairs, and he's the man to do it. I think he's sounds like he goes pretty well on the clay. Hard court's obviously not his strength. If he's not quite getting it done on the Aussie Open, got it done on the French, and that's all you could ask for, really.
So Chad, putting on the hard word there. If anyone knows Fernandez or Fernandez himself is listening, which would be a small possibility, we'd like to hear from you about pushing on the clay courts.
I did happen to read a few interviews. I think we might have a few issues with the translation. I think you might need a translator. Obviously, as people learn different languages, you can kind of tell that English is definitely not his first language. But
Spanish is definitely not our strong suit either, Scotty.
Yeah.
There's
nothing wrong with English as a second language. My wife has English as a second language, and Scotty's girlfriend, English is about her second or third language as well. So.
As does our coach.
And our coach. Yeah.
What's your excuse, Chatty?
No excuse. Full on Australian.
So anyone who just heard that, that means Chad, the single man, will be rocking around Rio. He's laughing in silence at the moment.
And he's about as red as a tomato right now too. He's getting a bit embarrassed. So, but the lovely ladies, have to put a shout out for Chatty. He's a good guy, and he's finishing competition quite early in Rio. So, if any lovely ladies are around.
Even our coach, Irina Divoskina, has been joining in the action lately because obviously Chad's hard of seeing, so Irina will sometimes help point the lovely ladies out for him.
Rightio, that's enough of Chad's dating service. I think. What else we got to?
Well, I think that's a pretty good note to end on. Other than we'll just wrap up what we might be talking about next week because there's a couple of things coming up in the Paralympic world. We got the Athletics European Championships starting.
I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be good.
Yeah, actually, that's going to be live. Go to Paralympic.org. They'll have a live stream of the event down in Grosseto, the European Championships.
Oh, that'll be good. That's good to know. So get on there, onto Paralympic.org. You can watch the action from the Athletics European Championships. They run from the 10th to the 16th. We've got another aptly named competition going on, which is the Rio qualification for archery. And it's named Czech Target. It's going on in the Czech Republic, where my wife's from. And I really like that name. The Czech Target is the name of the competition, and pun intended, I think. Also, just the third one that I'd mentioned coming up this week was the World Open Boccia.
And that brings us to the end with the weekly wrap-up, and that's week number 2 going, boys. Nice little podcast, hopefully. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. It's been a pleasure bringing it to you. Even though we are a little bit late, we do apologise for that once again. We did have a few technical difficulties, which we actually haven't found the solution to. It just decided to work again, but that's another issue. So join us next week. We'll probably try and bring it to you a little bit earlier in the week again, as there will be plenty of stuff going on over the weekend, as Chad just mentioned. Remember to jump on the hashtag @TheHomeStraight to join the conversation, and have a good week.